Anya, Ben, Chris, and Daisy were 4 close friends. They had met in college and had been inseparable ever since. They shared a passion for adventure and loved spending time together outdoors. One summer, they decided to go on a weekend getaway to a secluded cabin in the woods. They were all excited about the trip and couldn't wait to spend some quality time together. They arrived at the cabin on Friday evening and settled in for the night. They cooked dinner together, played games, and talked for hours. On Saturday morning, they went for a hike in the woods. They had a great time exploring the trails and enjoying the scenery. When they returned to the cabin for lunch, Ben discovered that Anya, Chris, and Daisy were not found. He felt like they disappeared. Ben searched the cabin and the surrounding area, but he couldn't find them anywhere. He was starting to panic. He decided to go back to the cabin and wait for his friends to return. But as the hours passed and the sun began to set, he realized that they were not coming back. Ben was scared and alone. He didn't know what had happened to his friends. He thought about leaving the cabin and searching for help, but he was afraid that he would get lost in the woods. He decided to stay in the cabin for the night. He locked the door and huddled by the fireplace. He didn't sleep much. He was too worried about his friends. The next morning, Ben woke up and decided to leave the cabin. He had to find help. He walked for hours, but he couldn't find his way out of the woods. He was starting to lose hope. He was tired, hungry, and thirsty. He sat down on a rock and started to cry. Just then, he heard a noise. He looked up and saw a group of hikers. He called out to them, and they came to his rescue. Ben was taken to the hospital, where he was treated for dehydration and exhaustion. He told the police what had happened, but they couldn't find any trace of his friends. Anya, Chris, and Daisy were never seen again. Ben was devastated by the loss of his friends. He couldn't understand what had happened to them. He had nightmares about them every night. He started to withdraw from his other friends and family. He was afraid of losing them too. One day, Ben was walking through the woods when he saw a strange figure in the distance. The figure was tall and slender, with long flowing hair. It was wearing a white cloak. Ben was drawn to the figure. He started to walk towards it. As he got closer, he could see that the figure was a woman. She had pale skin and piercing blue eyes. The woman smiled at Ben. "Hello, Ben," she said. "I've been waiting for you." Ben was surprised. "How do you know my name?" he asked. The woman didn't answer. She just smiled. "Who are you?" Ben asked. "I am the one who took your friends," the woman said. Ben's heart sank. "Why?" he asked. "Because they were needed," the woman said. "They are now part of something greater than themselves." "What do you mean?" Ben asked. "You wouldn't understand," the woman said. "But one day you will." The woman turned to walk away. "Wait," Ben called out. "Can I see them again?" The woman stopped and turned to look at Ben. "No," she said, "but you will hear from them again soon." The woman disappeared into the woods. Ben was left alone. He didn't know what to think. He didn't know what to believe. All he knew was that his friends were gone, and he didn't know how to get them back. Ben walked back to his house. He sat down on the couch and stared at the wall. He thought about his friends. He wondered what had happened to them. He wondered if he would ever see them again. He closed his eyes and tried to forget, but he couldn't. The image of his friends' faces was burned into his mind. He knew that he would never forget them, and he knew that he would never give up hope of seeing them again. Ben spent the next few weeks trying to cope with the loss of his friends. He withdrew from his other friends and family, and he spent most of his time alone. He couldn't stop thinking about Anya, Chris, and Daisy. He wondered what had happened to them and if he would ever see them again. One day, Ben was walking through the woods when he saw the strange woman again. She was standing in a clearing, and she was surrounded by a group of people. Ben recognized Anya, Chris, and Daisy among the group. They were all smiling and laughing. They looked happy. Ben ran towards them. Anya, Chris, Daisy, he shouted. They turned to look at him, and their smiles faded. They looked at each other, and then they looked back at Ben. Ben, Anya said, "We've missed you." Ben couldn't speak. He just stood there, staring at his friends. He couldn't believe that they were back. "What happened to you?" he asked finally. "We were taken to a different place," Anya said. "A place where we could be ourselves and where we could be happy." "But why did you leave me?" Ben asked. "We didn't leave you by choice," Chris said. "You were forced to leave." "But who forced you?" Ben asked. Anya, Chris, and Daisy looked at each other and hesitated. "We can't tell you that," Anya said finally. "But we want you to know that we're back now, and we're here to stay." Ben smiled. "I'm so glad," he said. Ben and his friends hugged each other. They were finally reunited. Ben and his friends went back to the cabin where they had disappeared. They spent the next few days together, catching up on everything that had happened. Ben was so happy to have his friends back, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He had nightmares about his friends every night. He dreamed that they were being taken away from him again. One day, Ben was sitting on the porch of the cabin alone. He was thinking about his friends and the nightmares he was having. Suddenly, he heard a voice behind him. "Ben," the voice said. Ben turned around and saw a strange woman standing there. "What do you want?" Ben asked. "I want to tell you the truth about your friends," the woman said. Ben listened intently. "Your friends were taken by the creatures of the woods," the woman said. "They are ancient beings that have lived in these woods for centuries. They are powerful and dangerous." "Why did they take my friends?" Ben asked. "They took your friends because they needed them," the woman said. "Your friends are special. They have the power to see and communicate with the creatures of the woods." "But what do the creatures want with them?" Ben asked. "The creatures want your friends to help them," the woman said. "They want your friends to teach them about the human world." "But why can't my friends just come home?" Ben asked. "Your friends can't come home," the woman said. "They are now part of the world of the creatures." "But I miss them," Ben said. "I know," the woman said, "but you must let them go." "How can I let them go?" Ben asked. "I love them." "You can let them go by accepting that they are happy where they are," the woman said. "You can let them go by knowing that they are safe." The woman turned to walk away. "Wait," Ben called out. "Is there anything else I should know?" The woman stopped and turned to look at Ben. "Yes," she said. "There is one more thing you should know." "What is it?" Ben asked. "The creatures of the woods are not the only ones who are interested in your friends," the woman said. "There are others who would like to see your friends in their possession." "Whom are these others?" Ben asked. "I can't tell you that," the woman said. "But I can tell you that they are powerful and they are dangerous." "What shall I do?" Ben asked. "You must protect your friends," the woman said. "You must not let them fall into the wrong hands." The woman disappeared into the woods. Ben sat on the porch for a long time, thinking about what the woman had said. He knew that he had to protect his friends, but he didn't know how. He stood up and went back into the cabin. He'd found his friends in the living room, talking and laughing. Ben smiled. He was glad to have his friends back, but he knew that he would never be able to look at them the same way again.